Have you ever wished you could sew your own clothing but felt intimidated by complex patterns? Well, in today's tutorial, we are going to learn exactly how to draft a Dartless A-line blouse pattern step by step. It is loose-fitting, comfortable, and perfect for lightweight drapery fabric. And the best part is beginner-friendly, so even if you are new to pattern drafting, you'll be able to follow along. Make sure you stay until the end because I'll also share a special tip to help you get the perfect drape for your blouse. And if you love learning pattern drafting, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my upcoming tutorials. Before we start drafting, let's quickly go over the tools and measurements we will need. You will need a pattern paper or any large paper of your choice, a measuring tape, ruler and curved ruler, pencil and eraser. Then you need your bust and hip measurement plus shoulder to bust, shoulder to hip length or the blouse length measurement. Pause here if you need to grab yours before we dive in. Write these measurements down clearly because you'll be using them throughout this drafting process. I'll start by leaving 1 inch from the top edge of the paper, then draw a line to use as my shoulder guideline. On the shoulder line, I'll measure and mark half of my shoulder width measurement, which in this case is 7.5. because the shoulder is 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. Then from this mark, go down by 1 inch to create the shoulder slope mark. Still on the shoulder line, measure and mark your neck width measurement, which in this case is 3 inches. Join the 3 inches mark to the shoulder slope mark just like so to create the shoulder line. Now, still on the shoulder guideline, measure and mark the neck depth measurement, which in this case we are using 4 inches. So measure and mark 4 inches down like so. Draw a square to use as a guide to draw the front neck curve. Now from the shoulder slope line, measure and mark your half of your armhole measurement, which in this case is 7.5 inches. Or you can use the shoulder measurement that you use for the shoulder line as your armhole line. It works for some people, but you have to try and see if it works for you because it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for most people. So you can try that method and see if it works for you. So draw a line to use as your chest guideline. Now from the shoulder, measure down your shoulder to waist measurement, which in this case is 16 inches. So I'll measure and mark 16 inches and draw a straight line to use as my waist guideline. Still from the shoulder line, measure and mark the blouse length measurement, which in this case we are using 24 inches. So I'll measure and mark 24 inches and draw a straight line to use as my hem guideline or a blouse length measurement or hip line, or it can be at the waist. You decide where you want it to end. So if you want it short to the waist, you measure to the waist. If you want it to the hip line, you measure to the hip. If you want it longer, you measure. Now on the chest line, measure and mark 1/4 of your bust circumference measurement, which in this case is 8.5. Then I'll add 1 inch ease to it, making 9.5 inches. So I'll measure and mark 9.5 inches like so. Now I want to join the shoulder line to the chest line. So I'll measure shoulder measurement on the chest line so that I'll get a straight line. Join the shoulder measurement mark on the chest line to the shoulder line to create the armhole line. Now look for the midpoint of the armhole line. Since this is a sleeveless blouse, I don't want it to end at the tip of the shoulder. I want it a little bit inside. So I'll use 3 inches for the shoulder line. Then from the midpoint of the armhole, I'll also go in by 1/2 inch. Then I'll join this mark to the 1/2 inch mark, then to the bust measurement on the chest line to create the armhole curve. Make sure you have a smooth curve for the armhole curve. Make sure you do all sharp edges and corners. Since the length of this top is to the hip line, I'll use the hip circumference measurement. So on the hip guideline, I'll measure and mark 1/4 of the hip circumference I am using for this illustration. Then I'll add 4 inches to it to create the A-line effect at the hem side. I forgot to add the 1 inch ease at the chest side, so I'm going ahead to add the 1 inch ease on the chest guideline. Now join this mark to the chest line with a straight line like so. Now from the hem guideline, I'll go up by 1 inch and join it back to the hem line to create a nice curve for the hem. Your pattern is ready. You can go ahead and add all the necessary seam allowance you need for the blouse. In this case, I added 1 inch for the side seam and then the hem. Then I added 1/2 inch to the armhole, shoulder, and then the neckline. Join the seam allowance points to create the seam allowance line, just like so. The red lines are the seam allowance lines, whilst the blue ones are the main measurements for the blouse. Now your pattern is ready. You can go ahead and cut it out. You can use this to cut both the front and the back if you want the depth of the neck the same way. But if you don't, you can copy the same measurements, then you make alteration to the neckline. So the neck, maybe if you want neck depth of 1 inch, instead of going down 4 inches, you go down by 1 inch, then you draw the neck curve for the back. For the purpose of this video, I'll go ahead and create the back part of the blouse by tracing the front pattern onto a fresh sheet of paper, then alter the neckline to create a neck depth of 1 inch. Be sure to smooth all sharp edges and corners. Was this video helpful? If it was, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more easy sewing and pattern drafting tutorials. Share with family and friends. Comment what you want us to learn next. Let me also know in the comment section what you think about this tutorial. Until next time, bye bye for now.